Here we go, everybody. This is Freedom from Alcohol. And hi, how are you? Welcome in.
Hello.
I don't know why I got weird there for a second.
Yeah, well,
I don't know. I'm a
gotta get
weird
weird
guy.
sometimes. Yeah,
Weird guy.
that's right.
So my name is Chris Shatek, along with Matt Gardner. What's up, buddy?
Hello, hello. Good to see everybody. Good to see you, Chris.
Yeah, Lauren is off this week, but what we want to talk about on today's episode is, well, let's call it the word that I really don't like the word, but a relapse, right? That's what
Mhm.
most people know the word as, meaning you stop drinking, a period of time goes by, and then you have a drink or 13 or whatever happens after that. The reason I don't like the word, well, first of all, I'm not a big fan of a lot of the labels that come with when people quit drinking, like alcoholic and even recovery, relapse. I don't know. The words to me just don't seem to hit my ears right because a relapse, I mean, oof, you hear that and you go, ooh, right? It just seems
Mm.
kind of like dark and like, oh man, that's bad. You relapsed. So I prefer to call them something different, whether it be like a trip or a slip up or even a lesson, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
we can look at it that way and take away what was the lesson from this. But that's what we're going to be talking about today because here's the deal from my point of view. Um, you know, they happen and we're not robots, so we can't expect to be perfect on this journey. The one thing I will say is I really come from the perspective of if you're going on a journey to be alcohol free and you really want to be done with alcohol, to at least attempt to not go into it with the thought of it's okay to relapse. Like
Mm.
even though it is, right? And I don't want you to beat yourself up for it or anything, but keeping that door open, I think, is what kept me from fully committing to, all right, I'm really doing this thing. I'm really a non-drinker, changing my identity going forward. Because the door was always open to, well, maybe down the road, I'll have a drink here and I'll test it out and all this kind of stuff. And as we talk about a lot in our coaching program, like that whole shutting the door metaphor, that really helped me going, you know what? The door is not even open a crack. It's just shut. So I just encourage anybody that is starting out or anything like that, don't go in with the idea that it's okay, that I don't even want to word it that way because it sounds bad, but
Mhm, mhm.
just don't have the thought of like, okay, we'll see how this goes. And if I relapse, whatever, because if we leave that door open, our brain will keep latching onto it. And even if we don't do it consciously, it'll be like, well, the door is open. Let's go and we can have a drink because we had a rough day or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So that's really where I come onto it. But I'm curious to know, Matt, what are your thoughts on the whole relapse, slip up sort of situation?
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you led with the whole idea that it's like you don't want to go in with the idea that you are going to have a relapse. Having said that though, like if you do, it's really about like, okay, how are you going to bounce back from that, right? And Craig Beck always says, don't let a slip up, or he says relapse, uh, have more power than it needs to. And what I think what he means by that, my interpretation of that is don't then dogpile on yourself about it, right? So I want to have a couple of analogies here that I'll use. If a sports team like my Edmonton Oilers this past season started it in dead last, and then by halfway through the season they won 16 games in a row, which was an NHL record. They tied NHL record for, and that's amazing. 16
Oh
games in a
wow,
row,
yeah.
right? And then they lost. So do you think the team after losing that one after 16 in a row was like, oh fuck, we're just you know what I mean? And then the media is piling on them. No, of course not. You're gonna look at the wow, look at what we just did. The 16 in a row. We had all these wins. We have all this momentum, all this goodwill built up, all this, this knowledge about ourselves as a team and so forth. And then we had a loss, right? So what are you going to, it's all about life. And we talked about this before. Life is all about what you focus on. So are you going to spend a lot of time dwelling on that one loss? Or are you going to go, look, we just had 16 wins in a row. Let's get back there. We know how to do it. We're going to bounce back quicker than before. You can give yourself that, you know, X amount of time and make it short, of like, okay, I'm going to feel the shame. I'm going to feel the guilt or whatever comes up. And then commit to yourself that after X amount of time, whether that's a couple minutes, an hour, part of a day, um, pivot off of that and go into solutions based mindset. Okay. And it's going to be like, hey, I've been here before. I've done this. This is what I learned from this. And then all of a sudden you can leverage a slip up as one of the most important lessons that points you in the right direction. Like I know for me, some of the the slip ups that I had are the reason I'm talking to you today. Had I not had those, I mean, I wouldn't have gotten that level of disturbed that I needed to get to, to slingshot myself back into, what I needed to do as far as being alcohol free. So the other thing too that comes up when you talk about slip ups or relapses is it's like, oh man, then I go back to square one. I'm back at the
Yeah.
start. And it's not true, right? So
Yeah.
if Chris, if you and I go out hiking today, there's some nice mountains around where I live now, which is beautiful. And if we were to go up there and you and I go up and I slip, like whatever, 10 or 15 linear feet downwards, and you're up there like waving at me. It's not like I'm okay, I gotta go back to the beginning. So I'll meet you up there. It's just a matter of like, and if you're still there, you can put your hand down, pull me back up. So that's the importance of community, right? As far as that, how that factors into the
Yeah.
analogy. That's basically it, right? Is this it's a slip up. You fell down, you fell off the horse, whatever it may be. And I'll use my
Tripped.
analogy. Yeah, you
Yeah.
tripped, right? So
Yeah.
get back on the trail and you can go up there. And now you have knowledge when you're going up that part of the trail. Okay, ooh, this is kind of a whatever a hazardous area for me. I'm going to be a little bit more conscious when I'm going through. I'm not going to be on as autopilot as I was. And that's what created the slip up in the first place. So all these types of things, right? So using analogies that can work for you. So the sports team won, the wins with the one loss coming off of it, and then the mountain thing is like you're not going right to the beginning. You've lost some ground, but the main thing is like what have you learned from that? So when you go back up that leg of the mountain, how are you going to do it differently?
Yeah, no doubt. And another analogy that I love is like think of a baby learning to walk, right? They're not gonna get it right the first time. They may start doing it and then they start walking and then oh, the next time they try it, they stumble, they fall. Did they just stop trying to walk altogether and go, oh man,
Right.
this might as well. I'm just gonna
Walking's not for
crawl the
you.
rest of my life,
Yeah.
and yeah, self-loathing, self like, oh man, look at me. I'm such a loser. Like that's
Yeah.
the mentality that I really think is so harmful when people are going on this journey. It's like no, I mean, again, you're human. You tripped up, and if you can get really curious about it, that's the word that I think you should put into your mind. Like, okay, well, I'm curious. Why did I trip up? Why did I go back and have a drink? What led up to it? How long was I thinking about it before I did it? Did something happen? Did I just hit the F it button? And
Hmm.
then how did I feel during it? How did I feel afterwards? Do I like that feeling, or did it bring me back to the pain and why I went on this journey in the first place? And if you just look at it that way, and you realize, you know what? Yeah, I really don't like that. This is a good way of showing me the lesson that I don't want to be a person that puts poison into my body anymore. You don't have to start back from day one. Just pick yourself back up and recommit, right?
Hmm.
Recommitting to why you're doing this.
Totally.
Do whatever you need to do to just start back. And yeah, so people can get so hung up, and it can be a really depressing sort of feeling. And then you beat yourself up. And then what happens, right? If you're not being aware of this, you start getting back into that pattern of okay, I'm going to beat myself up. I'm self-loathing. I'm a loser. I can't do this. When you
Hmm.
start feeling like that, alcohol seems like a really good place to go. It seems like a
Totally.
really good
Yeah.
solution to come back to. So you
100%.
want to make sure that you're not getting your mood, your mindset back into that dangerous territory.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a really good point, right? And that's why talk about like I guess some of the lowest vibrational emotions. Like if you look on the, I don't know if you're familiar with the David Hawkins scale. Dr. David
Yeah.
Hawkins is like at the lowest of the. Actually, I have it here because I'm going to be
Yeah,
presenting it.
pull it
And
up because I
yeah,
it's a good thing. And for those that are just listening, obviously you can't see it, but it's a
yeah,
good thing to talk about but when I was a drinker, before I went on, learning about all this stuff and myself, I had no idea about any of this, but it makes a lot of sense when you look at it.
it does. Yeah. So I'm looking at it right now. So emotional frequencies. So the absolute lowest, and this is lower than fear. So fear is at 100 hertz. The lowest of the low, according to the Hawkins scale, is 20 hertz, and that's shame. And then
Yep.
just above that is guilt. And man, both of those, what are like the two things that come to mind when you're feeling hungover the next day? The first two emotions that come to mind in the clients that I've talked to when they're first starting our mastermind and myself when I look back on my, lowest of low days, it's guilt and shame. And so
Yep.
those are you're putting yourself in the lowest vibrational. And it's worth mentioning too. It's like, how do you get down there? Okay, well, alcohol amplifies artificially your dopamine and everything else in your brain. So all of a sudden you're going up to the highest of highs. So the highest one on the emotional frequency scale is enlightenment. which is like, of course, how many times have you like solved the world's problems when you're, you know what I mean? It's so such fake BS. And then peace is under there at 600, joy
Hmm.
540. So all this like artificially acquired joy that you get from drinking, and of course you're gonna have the equal and opposite reaction on the downswing of it. So when you get into that's when you find yourself in guilt and shame the next day, and then wondering like, what the hell was I even talking about? I felt enlightened and I felt all this joy. Why do I feel like shit now? Right? So just realizing that guilt and shame as emotions, other than in that moment where it's like, okay, it's signaling to you, okay, I need to make a change. I want to make a change. It's getting you to that point of like disturbed that you're going to leverage that. Actually, there's a slight tangent. Wayne Dyer mentioned is like, if you are about to go do like a high jump, before you do it, you don't just walk up to the bar and like launch yourself over like a seal coming out of the water. You go down first. So he's like, look at it like that. So before you do that, before you make your big leap, before you make a big change in your life, you need to get the proper, I guess, positioning down. So that's what you look at. And it's like kind of the silver lining of like getting down into that low emotion, that guilt, that shame in that moment. And then that's propelling you so you can then, get out of that dark spot that you're at. I love that as a comparison. So just remembering guilt and shame in the moment is worth it because it'll get you to that spot where you're like, F this, I'm going to change myself. But other than that, it is completely useless. Both of those emotions are completely useless to carry throughout the day or let them like, okay, the next day you're going to like revisit those emotions. Bullshit. You don't need to. And to your point, Chris, it's just all honestly, it's just like an old pattern of like victim mentality that shows up that makes you want to drink again, anyways.
Yep. Yeah. And that's why, having the right kind of mindset when you're going on this journey is so crucial. Where it's one of the pillars that we help people with is getting your mindset to a good place where you can think like this, right? Okay, I tripped up. It's not the end of the world. I'm not a complete loser that, oh my God, I got to hand my chip in and I got to go back to day one and all
Totally.
this kind of
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
just that whole thought alone makes me cringe so much. It's like, no, if your mindset is in a good place and you're healthy with who you are, you're going to realize that, you know what, along the way in life, you're going to make mistakes. We all do. Nobody's perfect. We all
Yeah.
trip up. I can say I'm not going to eat potato chips for the next week, and then by day two, I might have some potato chips. Am I going to call myself a fat loser, an idiot who can't get anything right? If I go with that mindset, how do you think that's going to help me? It's
Totally.
not right. But
Yeah.
if I go, you know what, I'm human. I probably shouldn't have had the chips because I said I wasn't going to do it. So let's recommit and let's get back and just keep going at it, right? So if your mindset is in a good place where you feel good about yourself and you have self-trust and self-worth and all this kind of stuff and you understand that mistakes are going to happen, it's a lot easier to then move forward. So using that curiosity, having the right mindset, understanding you're not a robot, it's okay. It is all going to be helpful. But again, I just want to go back to like making sure if you're going on this journey, don't go in with that mindset of like I'm gonna relapse. Like, don't put that in your head. Don't leave it as an option. Now, if it happens, it happens. But I think that's a big area where we go. I'm just gonna leave that door open a little bit, so that way, it's an option down the road. And so that's what I would say on this. Is there anything else that you would add to this?
No, I'm glad that we bookended this episode with that thought, right? Of course, we're talking about it, but yeah, having that mindset going in that you're not going to, not allowing that, right? Because how many times have we talked about leaving the door open a crack? Well, you're gonna be attracted to that. 99% is actually more challenging than 100%, because then us as our human brains will be focused on that 1%. Well, when's that
Right.
1% coming, right? Dieting, anything else you do. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And then having said that, hopefully we gave you enough, mindset shifts or tools to, if and when that does happen to you, how you can bounce back very quickly from it.
Yeah, and again, the identity part, right, it needs to be shifted to that of I'm a person who doesn't drink. So that let's say you're 3 months without any alcohol, you're feeling great. It's a barbecue, somebody invites you, and all your friends are there drinking, and there's a part of you, there's a voice in your head that is going to come in and say, you know what, we've gone 3 months without any alcohol. We're doing really good here. It's just one drink. Like
Right.
your brain
Yeah,
will try to talk to. I call it the
absolutely.
dark passenger. Craig Beck calls it the evil clown. Like that voice is in our heads,
Yep.
and so if we have that idea in the back that the door's not shut all the way, and it's okay to just have one here or there, that's what ends up then kind of getting us back into this cycle. So if
Totally.
that
Yeah.
if that does happen, you want to be a person that goes, you know what, I'm going to the barbecue. I'm a non-drinker, so
Hmm.
regardless of what happens, regardless of the voice in my head, I'm not going to drink today. That's just a better way of, I think, approaching
Yeah.
this. But yeah, if
Yeah.
you do have a trip up or a slip up or a trip, whatever you want to call it, look at it as a lesson. What can you learn from it? Get curious and just get right back on it. That's the best way to approach this. Do not beat yourself up. Look, at the end of the day, beating yourself up is never going to be a solution for anything, right? You already
Right.
do that anyway, and
Yeah.
hopefully, you're not constantly beating yourself up, but we all do to some degree. But that's never going to be a good solution. So don't ever beat yourself up, right?
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
all right, we'll wrap it up there. And by the way, we appreciate you listening to the Freedom from Alcohol podcast. If you are enjoying it, if you're digging it, give us a 5-star review. Leave us a comment, right? Does it help
Mhm.
people? Like more people see it if people leave a comment, right? Is that, or am
Yeah,
I making that
absolutely.
up,
No,
pulling
that's
it out
right.
of my ass or something? I don't know.
Don't say, yeah, no, you're not pulling it out of your ass. And it's yeah, Apple Podcast specifically. If you can do a 5-star review with the text, then it shows up. If you just do the 5-star review for whatever reason, it doesn't spread the testimonial quite as far. So yes, please, if you're enjoying it and just have a couple kind words about the show, it really helps us get the word out on the show, specific to Apple Podcast and Spotify. Just a matter of following us, checking it off as followed, and yeah, it really just helps us, and just yeah, the word of mouth. If there's somebody that that would benefit from hearing these types of bite-sized podcasts that we do, please let them know about it.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're interested in working with us in our Freedom from Alcohol coaching mastermind, where we go deeper into this stuff, we help you. We do one-on-one coaching, group coaching, we do hypnosis and everything like that. We have openings, and you can go to getoverdrinking.com because that's what we help you do. We help you get over drinking so you don't want to do it anymore, lose the desire for it. Getoverdrinking.com. You can book a call with me, and we'll hop on and see if you're a good fit, if we're a good fit for you. And if we are, we'll work with you, and it's life changing, right? We love our clients, we love our booze for our bold, brave badasses that we work with, and we'd
Hmm.
love to have you join us. So we will be back next Tuesday with another episode. Thank you so much for listening. It's Freedom from Alcohol, y'all. I don't know why I said y'all. I'm not a person that says y'all. So
Yeah. Well,
it's Freedom from Alcohol, everybody.
y'all. Oh wait.
See you next time.
Take care.